I'm Brittany Lewis with Forbes Breaking News. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell blasted last year's chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan on the Senate floor Thursday. McConnell noted that yesterday marked 1 year since the Biden administration said that the Afghanistan withdrawal was halfway complete. McConnell blamed the Biden administration for what he described as a reckless pullout. The current administration was roundly criticized in the aftermath of the withdrawal. A poll taken last year revealed that while a majority of Americans agreed with the decision to pull the U.S. out of Afghanistan, even most Democrats found it hard to back Biden's handling of the U.S. troop withdrawal. Listen in for more from the Kentucky Republicans' remarks.
Now, on an entirely separate matter, 1 year ago yesterday, the Biden administration announced its withdrawal from Afghanistan had reached a halfway point. Analyst after analyst has confirmed what was clear to many of us in real time. The president's shoddy plans for a reckless pullout were doomed to disaster from the start. Back in February, an Army investigation found that in the run-up to President Biden's botched retreat, his senior national security and diplomatic advisors were not seriously planning for an evacuation and not paying attention to what was happening on the ground. That's an Army investigation of the withdrawal. Last month, the Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction blasted the administration's bad judgment before Congress. He explained that removing U.S. military and contractor support to our Afghan partners was, quote, the single most important factor in the collapse of Afghanistan's resistance to the Taliban. It's not just that this giant policy failure should have been foreseeable to the Biden administration. It was, in fact, foreseen. Experts spent months warning the president's policies would create chaos. I spent months saying the very same thing. Now, many of the worst predictions about the aftermath are coming true before our eyes. Our country and our partners are facing needlessly heightened risk from terrorists because of how the Biden administration botched Afghanistan. And yet the administration is still in denial. In a letter to Congress just yesterday, the commander-in-chief claimed the United States, quote, remains postured to address threats to both our homeland and our interests that may arise from inside of Afghanistan. But the reality is that Pentagon leaders have been clear about the dramatic ways that withdrawal has limited our ability to identify, to target, and to strike terrorists in Afghanistan. The former commander of U.S. Central Command says that forcing U.S. air assets to travel longer distances to reach Afghan airspace means severely limiting the time they can spend actually performing counterterrorism missions, just as we predicted. A brand new report from the lead inspector general for our ongoing counterterrorism operations further confirms that the Biden administration's mistakes have put us way behind the curve. Without human intelligence or bases in the country, the United States is already suffering from less insight into emerging terror threats. Our sources are drying up, just as we predicted. We haven't conducted a single strike against a terrorist target in Afghanistan since the last U.S. military personnel left Kabul. And that isn't because there aren't any terrorists there. As the IG report confirms, it's because of, quote, logistical challenges and limited intelligence. The Taliban, Afghani government in Kabul is not just a state sponsor of terrorism. It is literally a government made up of terrorists and kidnappers with deep ties to al-Qaeda. Even as the Biden team continues to pretend that over-the-horizon operations are adequate in Afghanistan, they are implicitly acknowledging that same insufficiency in other theaters. Last month, President Biden redeployed U.S. troops to Somalia, establishing a limited but real presence needed to help local partners prevent their country from becoming a terrorist haven. So President Biden's own actions in Somalia give rise to the false claims in Afghanistan. In point of fact, the longest-term vision about counterterrorism this White House has managed to lay out is their obsession with someday shutting down Guantanamo Bay detention entirely. I've yet to hear any coherent plan for what the administration intends to do with the dangerous killers currently held there. Will they continue to rely on third countries to detain terrorists? That's the strategy that made possible the Taliban's massive jailbreak of thousands of hardened terrorists from Bagram after the administration fled Afghanistan. Does the administration intend to send terrorists to Syria to be held indefinitely by a non-government entity like the Syrian Defense Forces? In that case, how long is the Biden administration prepared to remain in Syria to make sure that ISIS, Hezbollah, or other Assad regime can't facilitate another giant jailbreak? The American people sent our coalition partners deserve a clear, coherent counterterrorism strategy that leaves our homeland safer and our partnerships stronger. The Biden administration is providing, unfortunately, exactly the opposite.